Why you should roll your 401k into an IRA, and maybe the one time I wouldn't. I'm going to make this one really simple. If you came to me and asked if you should roll your 401k into an IRA, I would say 100% yes, without a doubt. This isn't one of those decisions where I'd sit you down and we have a conversation going over the pros and cons of 401ks and IRAs. It's not something that we would map out every single variable. It's pretty straightforward. The reality is the people that never get around to rolling over their 401k fall into two different kinds of buckets. Either they've been doing this for 20, 30 plus years, they like what they have, they don't want to change it, and it's just easier to leave it where it is, or they just never get around to it. There's really only one situation that would give me pause, and that's what matters. Because the decision itself is simple enough, but it's what comes after the decision that people don't necessarily think about. That's where things either feel smooth or start to fall off. Something I say all the time to my clients is simple decisions do not need overcomplicated explanations. They just need the right context. The reason I usually recommend rolling into an IRA, it comes down to control and simplicity. A 401k is going to give you a preset menu. You can pick and choose from these certain options. It could be 10, it could be 40, it could be 80. Just kind of depends on your employer's plan. Whereas when you roll into an IRA, it gives you the whole grocery store. You get to pick and choose from a lot of different things, really from everything when it comes to investments. And that can be helpful depending on how you want your money invested and how involved you want to be. It also makes things easier to manage. If you have a lot of old 401ks from old employers that you don't really know what to do with, consolidating them into one IRA just keeps everything together in one place. No more dealing with 3 to 4 different employers, no more, multiple logins to get your accounts. It's all into one place and keeps things a lot more simple. On top of that, IRAs give you a lot more flexibility when it comes to taking money out over time, which will become more important when you're actually living off that money. This is also what most people just end up doing anyway. IRAs now hold more retirement assets than 401ks in the US, largely because people will just roll their assets over once they retire. So yes, for most people, this is a solid and very normal move. But that's not where people run into issues. Doing the right thing doesn't mean you understand what happens next. There is one situation where I would stop and think before doing this, and that's if you came to me and said that you might need access to your money earlier than expected. There's something called the rule of 55, and typically with an IRA, you can get access to that money without IRS penalties starting at age 59 and a half, right? But in employer-sponsored plans in your 401k, 403b, 457, 457 would be different because there's separation of service. But with your 401k and 403b, you have what's called the rule of 55, which says if you retire at age 55 or later, you have immediate access to that money as long as it's still in the employer plan. Okay, so if you retire from your 9-to-5 job, you have a 401k, and you're 55, then if you keep the money in the plan, you could actually make withdrawals, have income coming from your 401k, and you wouldn't be penalized based off that IRS 10% penalty. Okay, but if you roll it into an IRA and you try to do that, then you're going to have that 10% penalty. Outside of that, there really isn't a strong reason to keep your retirement assets in your 401k plan. And to go along with that too, usually when you take out withdrawals from a 401k, it has to be approved by the employer. Whereas if you have your money in an IRA, the only person that has to approve it is you, really. So there is an extra step to get your withdrawals when you keep it in a 401k plan, which for the reason of I need my income and I'm 55, I can access it, then yes, absolutely, that extra step isn't going to matter. But if you're just keeping your money in there for familiarity reasons, it's not necessarily a strong enough argument. The only reason to wait here to roll over your IRA is if waiting actually gives you something, like using the rule of 55. So it actually matters after you roll it. And this is the part that people don't think about enough, because rolling it over is the easy part, right? You just need an open RIA account and then the transfer forms. And usually you have somebody like me doing that for you, so all you have to do is sign. What matters is what happens once that money hits the IRA. Now you have to turn that account into income. You have to decide how much to take out, when to take it, and how those withdrawals are going to affect everything else financially. And this is where taxes come into play. Both 401ks and traditional IRAs are both tax-deferred accounts, which means when you take money out, it needs to be taxed, and it's going to be taxed as ordinary income. So every withdrawal that you make within a year affects your overall income, and after a while, it's not even optional. Required minimum distributions, or RMDs, generally start at age 73, which means the IRS is going to require you to make withdrawals whether you need them or not. And at that point, withdrawals can start to stack on top of any other income, like say a pension or Social Security, or if you have a side job, rental properties, whatever it may be. All of those incomes will start to stack. And if you're not expecting RMDs to be as big as they are or as much as they are, then it's going to potentially bump you into the next tax bracket. And that's what people need to be made aware of. Let me give you a simple real life example of how this shows up. Say, you're just retired, you have $900,000 saved up in your 401k, and you roll it over into an IRA because somebody told you that that's what you should do, which is fine. That's perfect. You take it out of the employer's hands, and now you put it into your own hands to manage. Now it's the middle of the summer, the weather's nice, you're retired, you have grandkids. You want to start, keeping them around a little bit more, so you want to buy a toy to take them out on the water. You look on Facebook Marketplace or what have you, and you find a used pontoon for $50,000. And you're like, hey, I saved a whole lot of money. It's time for me to use it. I want to spoil my grandkids and spend time with them. So you take that money out of your retirement account and pay for that pontoon boat. Well, getting that pontoon boat and paying for it isn't as simple as pulling money out of your savings account and using that to pay for the pontoon, right? You just made a withdrawal from your retirement account, and now it's going to be factored in as $50,000 worth of income. That $50,000 could potentially increase your taxes and also affect how your Social Security is taxed. That could increase your taxes, potentially affect how your Social Security is taxed, and just make things feel a little bit more tighter than you originally thought it would. And all you wanted to do was buy a pontoon boat to spend time with your grandkids. That's usually the moment people pause and think, why did that hit harder than I thought? And the issue isn't the purchase or the withdrawal itself. The issue is that decision wasn't connected to a plan. It's not the spending that hurts, right? You saved up all this money in retirement. You want to spend it. You want to live retirement how you want, but it's the surprise of taxes that hurts. The mistake isn't rolling your 401k into an IRA. Most of the time, that's 100% absolutely what you should do. The mistake is thinking that rollover solves all of your problems. All it really did was move the money from one account to another, and what it actually determines how things feel in retirement is how that money turns into income over time, how those taxes are managed, and how each decision builds on top of one another. That's where people either feel they're in control or feel like something's off. Moving money is easy. Managing it is where the outcome is decided. So, if you're wondering what you should be doing with your 401k, rolling it over is usually the clear answer. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Like I said earlier, don't make things complicated if you don't need to. Just don't confuse rolling over with actually having a plan, because rolling it over is the easy part. What happens after is what actually determines how things feel in retirement. Thank you for coming to today's episode of Tommy 2 Cents. As a reminder, if you want to grab some time with me to walk through your situation, in the description there's a link below. We can schedule a conversation. Happy to help in however I can. I'm Tommy Warner. I'll see you in the next episode. Take it easy.